What's going on, everybody? It's Wednesday. It's not just any Wednesday. It's the day before Thanksgiving. I absolutely love Thanksgiving. I mean, who doesn't like eating pie, eating stuffing, eating stuff covered in gravy, and it's socially acceptable, and then sitting around watching football all day? It's like all of my favorite things wrapped into one. So I am very excited. Now, in all honesty, we'll be out of town. There's been a big regional soccer tournament every year that Lucy attends for her club soccer team down in San Diego. It's the last year that she'll be doing it because she's going to age out and graduate high school here pretty quick. But we will be down there. We will have a good time, and it'll be a nice little getaway. I'm off all week. What's not fantastic about that? So I'm very rejuvenated right now. Got a little extra bounce in my step. Having a little bit of extra time to maybe sleep in a little bit longer than normal if I can get myself to do it. Now, remember, Wednesdays are Q&A day. I asked last week, I said, guys, people haven't been asking many questions lately. And several of you came through and asked a question. So thank you to those of you that did that. If any of you have a question that you're curious on hearing my thoughts on, I'm obviously happy to help and happy to at least share my opinion if that's helpful. And it's just fun to talk about. More than anything, it's just fun to talk about cards. It's one of my favorite things to do. So these Wednesday videos are fantastic. At least they are from my perspective. Now, I wanted to throw this out there. You know, next few days, some of you might have the day off and you might just be kind of hanging out. If you've not yet signed up on my form, which will be down in the description below, for your free Captain Midlife card, courtesy of our friends at the Penny Sleever, that is still available. I got about 20 left. Now remember, I will send it to you free of charge. Look at this is the envelope. How cool is that? You got me up here. You got the cool Hank Aaron stamp. And we got the Midlife logo and the Penny Sleever logo on the back. And then you get a Mr. Penny Sleever card. And the Mr. Penny Sleever card has a promo code for 10% off at thepennysleever.com. I've had several people have reached out to me and said, hey, Greg, I put in an order. I bought some stuff from the Penny Sleever, used the code, and I couldn't be happier. I really think that you will enjoy their product. It's really high quality. They're really friendly people. Isaac's a great guy, and he was on the channel a few weeks ago. So I'll keep promoting that until that goes away. And again, if you have received your card and you want to tag me on Instagram. If you're going to post it up on Instagram, tag me so I know that you did. And I'd love to share more of those pictures next week, just like I did last week. So it's fun to see those spread out. We have officially been let's see. I have sent these now to 4 countries. Yes, the United States, Canada, the UK, and Hong Kong. They've gone all the way to Hong Kong. And then I have a friend who is in Australia, and he said, I'm not going to make you send it all the way to Australia. So he's like, just give it to me at Strongsville, because he'll be in Strongsville. So excited to do that. So we will, at that point, we will be on 1, 2, 3, 4 continents. How about that? Now that is Midlife Nation if I've ever heard of it. So, all right, enough of that. Again, Penny Sleever, check out thepennysleever.com for all of your hobby supply needs. Let's check out our first question here.
Great video, Greg. I was hoping for a little clarification. You answered a question about Grail cards. I know you had your 3 always wanted cards, Yogi, Ernie, and Brooks. What's at the top of your always wanted list now? Is that a different answer? You said recently you want a Griffey. I think you should buy one to check it off the list. What's been on the wish list for 30 years alongside Ernie Banks?
All right. So I guess this is going to be kind of a follow-up question to a question I talked about recently about Grail cards, what Grail cards I still don't have that I'd like to have. And it sounds like the clarification or the follow-up is, no, Greg, what are some cards that since you were a little kid, you've wanted and that you would like to obtain? Now, it's tough when there were like three main cards that I was in love with that I always had my eye on that were like the ones that I wanted to say, well, then what's next? Because it's just different because it's not those. So I think it sounds like what we're asking here is, Greg, what are some cards that as a kid you had your eye on, but you never bought? And now you might be interested in going out and buying because you thought they were cool as a kid, but you never got them. So what I'll do is I'll rattle off some of the cards that as a kid I was enamored with, that I really liked the appeal of. And it's going to be a little bit all over the place. I'll just say that right now. But I'm trying to answer the question as best I can. But again, I think you're saying, what are some cards that since you were, 10, you kind of were hoping to have someday? All right. I'll start way back. I never even dreamed about possibly having a T206. I did dream about having a 33 Gaudy Jimmie Foxx. I did dream about a 33 Gaudy Hack Wilson. So that's about as far back as a kid that I ever looked and said, oh, that would be amazing. Obviously, the 51 Bowman Mantle and Mays are two cards that I, am enamored with. The 52 Mickey Mantle, the 52 Topps Mickey Mantle is obviously a card that I was enamored with. I would say the 54 Topps Hank Aaron and the 54 Topps Al Kaline are two cards that I was just as a kid was like, oh my gosh, this is like, you walk by those and you hear the angels sing. They're just amazing, amazing cards. As an adult now, I'm more drawn to the Roberto Clemente rookie and the Sandy Koufax than I was then. So you're asking for cards that I was enamored with back then. Again, some of these are going to be random. The 58 Topps Orlando Cepeda. Growing up in Northern California, he was signed at a lot of card shows. We'd see him around town. He lived in the next town over from me. So there would be times that you'd just see him out and about and stuff. So I've always liked the looks of the Orlando Cepeda rookie card. What else? The 63 Pete Rose rookie was a big card. What else are some more? The 68 Nolan Ryan was a big card back then. Nolan Ryan was getting, he was hitting, no hitters, 10 million strikeouts, all that stuff. And that was obviously like a fantasy card. Other cards that were cool that I never got, the 84 Fleer Dwight Gooden was a big card as a kid. What else was a big one? The 84 Fleer Kirby Puckett was a big card. What were some other ones that I really was just enamored with? Obviously, I mentioned the Griffey before. The 90 Leaf Frank Thomas. The 84 Donruss Don Mattingly. That would probably be the list. Now, that's a big list. As a kid, some of those seemed impossible. The Hoops David Robinson card. I have that one now. I bought that one. So those were all cards that were just like, whoa. And some of those Uh, some of those are going to be added to the collection sooner than you think. I'll just say that. But a lot of those are still long-term goals. But, oh, I forgot one. So Sadahara I know he's been in the news recently and stuff, but I vividly remember being at a card show in San Francisco at the Fashion Center. It was a massive show. It might have been the national year. And I remember there was, in that room, there was like an upper level and then there was a lower level. And it was like you take a few stairs up to the upper level. And I remember the upper level was mostly vintage. Back then, they actually kind of organized it, like new stuff over here, vintage over here. And I was at the vintage area, and I remember seeing one of the Sadahara O rookie cards, the one with the orange background. And I remember, because, this is back in the day of like the Guinness Book of World Records. Remember that? That was like, they'd have the book fair at school, and then you'd go and you'd look through the books at the book fair, and they'd always have some of the Guinness Book of World Records, and it'd say most home runs hit ever, and it would say Sadahara O. I was like, what? This guy hit like 800 and something home runs? Like, and then I saw his card, and that card really stood out to me. It really stood out to me as a memorable card. I never in a million years thought, oh, well, someday I might own it. Like, no, that's not going to happen. I'll never own it. But, so does that make it a grail? So that would be on the list as well. So I hope I answered the question. But if I didn't, tell me, and I'll follow up again.
Greg, what do you think of pre-war cards that are graded authentic for trimming? The trimming is not readily visible. Goodbye or stay away?
All right, I'm really glad this question got asked, because in my hobby life, since I was little, there have been a handful of things where I've kind of evolved my thought process on. It's changed a little bit. One of those was minor league cards. As a kid, we thought minor league cards were like phony. And the reason that I thought they were phony is because there was that one Don Mattingly Columbus Clipper card that was like, printed to the moon. It's like paper thin, and it just like was everywhere. And somebody that we know bought one of those thinking it was like a real minor league card, and then find out they're just like, we're all reprinted. And so we just it kind of scarred me, at least, that, oh yeah, minor league cards. No, you don't do minor league cards. So I was a guy who had every single Roger Clemens card, but I did not have his Pawtucket card, his minor league card. And in fact, I guess I should go back to the last question and say a card that I always wanted, but I thought I shouldn't want, is the Pawtucket Clemens. So maybe I should have added that one to the list. There you go. It's been added. So that was one area. Another area was you don't buy autographs unless you see the guy sign it. Because there wasn't like quality authentication. There wasn't looking at pressure points under high magnification to see flow line. There wasn't any way to tell unless you physically saw it with your own eyes. And there was there were letters of authenticity, but it was, I remember my neighbor 2 doors down, his name was Jeff. Jeff bought a Randall Cunningham autographed photo at a card show. And I go, Jeff, dude, what are you doing? This thing could be fake. You weren't there. He goes, no, it's got a letter of authenticity. I go, let me see. So on the back of the little, you remember those plastic sleeves, like go in binders? And he goes, oh, look. And on the back, he had the letter of authenticity. And I swear to you, I'm not making this up. They spelled Randall wrong. The letter of authenticity for Randall Cunningham was so bogus, they didn't even spell his name right. Now, it might have been a legit autograph, But come on, if you're not even spelling his name right on the letter of authenticity, if you're sitting there all day as he's signing and you're doing the letters of authenticity and you're writing in the information, don't you think you would be spelling it right? Like, hey, Randall, how do you spell your name? Okay, and then do it. I mean, what are we doing? So I never would have bought an autograph unless I saw it. My opinion on that has also changed a little bit. So minor leagues has changed a little bit, and autographs, I don't feel like I have to be there. I still would prefer to be there in person, but I don't feel like I have to be there in person because they've gotten much better at being able to catch a lot of that stuff. Another thing is my dad used to call a pinhole in a card the death sentence. It was the death penalty. The card was like ruined of it. But then I met my buddy Mookie Chilson and everything changed. As soon as I met Mookie and he explained what a pinhole actually means, it actually changed my opinion some of that. And then altered cards were, I always viewed altered cards as somebody out there, somewhere, because I mean, part of the joy of collecting is wondering about the history of the card. What has this card been through? What is the journey that this card has experienced? And when somebody altered the card, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, it was done to deceive a future buyer. Some people just did it for themselves. That's different. But a lot of the time, people did it hoping that the buyer wouldn't know it. And that would taint the card to me. It made me feel like, somebody, it's like the scarlet letter. It's like it just sticks around that somebody did this deceitful lie. And I'm a lot of things in this world. I've been called a lot of names, most of which are true. But I'm not a liar. And lying and being deceitful is something that I struggle with. And so for years and years and years, I struggled with that. But to answer your question, you say, with pre-war cards, here's my thing. If you're buying a slabbed pre-war card that has already been designated that it's been trimmed, and nobody's trying to undesignated that, nobody's going to crack it out and try to sell it as if it wasn't, then I'm kind of okay with it now. See, there are some cards that the fact that the card even exists, that in itself is incredible. It's incredible that there are some cards in my collection that there are 10 of in the world. 10. And I have one of them. So if they found an 11th one, but it was trimmed, to me, it's incredible that there's an 11th one. It's like if they find an old classic Corvette in a barn, but the thing is just absolutely roached. It's still the car. It doesn't mean you just throw it and scrap it. You don't take it out and scrap it. It's still the car. You can still enjoy what it is. And so like a year ago, I was asked this question. And I said, no, I am not interested in any cards that have ever been altered. But my personal opinion on that has been now changed, largely because of my buddy Dave Blue Jacket 66. He's like, no, man, some of these cards are so rare. If the card is still intact, that's an amazing piece to have it. You know, if somebody's like a Civil War collector, Civil War artifacts, and they found like sometimes they'll like people will be out metal detecting, they'll find like an old button off of a Confederate or a Union, coat or something. And they'll, oh my gosh, this is a button from a Civil War soldier's coat. And it's cracked in half. it's still pretty cool. It's still pretty freaking cool. And if somebody took the two halves and they glued it back together so that it looked more like it did, that's still pretty cool. So I've evolved on it. I probably gave you guys way more on that than you're asking. But as long as you know it's altered, as long as you're okay that it's altered, as long as you're planning on leaving it as it is, I think I'll probably own altered cards in my collection at some point. At the moment, I don't have any, but I think that I probably will at some point. For a card that I want, that's rare enough, I think I probably will.
What grader is the best to send cards from the early 80s?
This is a tough question because I think it's mostly personal preference. So I don't know how much I'll be able to share about this. For me personally, I think modern cards look best in PSA slabs. I just think that they look good in those slabs. That's not to say I wouldn't own a modern card in a different slab, but they look best in those to me. In fact, I cracked out a Manning card in an SGC slab and sent it into PSA, and I cracked one out of a Beckett slab and I sent it into PSA because I just think they look best in those. My personal preference. But I also am at this point officially willing to say that to me, my favorite grading company is SGC. Now, that doesn't mean PSA is not good or that other people shouldn't collect PSA stuff. When you're looking at old cards, I just think they look better in SGC slabs. I even had a couple of cards crossed over from PSA slabs to SGC slabs because I thought they'd look nicer. Did that hurt some of the value? Maybe it did, but I don't really care because they're long-term my collection cards. So it's sort of like the card is the frame. And if I got a picture that I really like and it's in a nice frame, but I find a different frame that I think I would enjoy looking at it more in that frame, then I'm going to get the other frame. Does that mean SGC is perfect? No. I mean, this is another place I've evolved. 3 years ago, I only had PSA. I only bought PSA. That was it. I didn't have any other slab 3 years ago. And I've come so far to now as to say that I prefer SGC when it comes to vintage. But for me, with modern cards, I prefer the look of PSA for modern and SGC for vintage. So if you're asking me what I would do, I would prefer it in if it's a pre-80s card, I would personally prefer it in SGC. That doesn't mean that's the right answer. What has the longest holding value at the moment? There is definitely still a premium for PSA. So if you're buying a card, if there are two cards in a holder side by side, and they are identical cards, and one's in a PSA slab and one's in an SGC slab, at this moment in time, right now, November of 2024, the PSA in most cases is still selling for a premium over SGC. So I guess the question is, it depends on your goal. Is it for your personal collection? If it's for your personal collection, then I would say whatever you like best. If it's for an investment and short-term investment, if you could get the same grade in both, which is questionable, then I would probably say PSA. But I think what this really boils down to is it comes back to what my buddy Chris from Missouri is always saying. Collect what you like. If you like SGC slabs and this is for your collection, put the card in an SGC slab. If you like the looks of PSA slabs and it's a card for your collection, put in a PSA slab. Again, the number is just a number. So if one of them grades more harshly than the other, and you're not planning on selling it because it's a long-term card for your collection, just get what you like. That's the best I can answer that.
My friend Jeremy says, "Hi Greg, hope you've been good, my friend. We all talk a lot about slabs and what brand looks better, sells for higher, and so on. I was all Beckett since the early 2000s, then cards were hard to find and swapped to SGCs. Plus, the look got me. Here's my question. In 20 plus years, what are the slabs going to look like? Are we going to touch the slab and information will appear at the top? Will we be able to black out light for storage, or the slab senses light and tints? I know, a little out there, but fun to think about. Just keep them ungraded is probably the best answer. Jeremy.
All right. This is a fun question. Obviously, again, no right or wrong answer. It's all speculation. Now, let me just say a few things. If we look at a brand new PSA slab and you look at the original PSA slab, they don't look that much different. And they've been around for 30 years. If you look at the original SGC slab and you look at a current SGC slab, they don't look that much different. So there hasn't been a lot of innovation over the last 30 years. Now, I know that PSA says they're using a little bit higher quality, plastic or whatever you want to call it now. There are a few counterfeiting things in the flip that are better than they were then. SGC has gone away from the 100-point scale. I know, but there's not been a major change. So 20 years from now, if I'm being honest, I don't really expect a major change. Now, there is a company, and I'm not on the payroll. I'm just, there is a company called, it's called Mint, but it's M1NT. And I've thought about reaching out to the guy who runs the company about coming on the channel. But he's come out with some prototypes of some frames to display your cards that are gorgeous, like gorgeous. He's like, these are works of art. Why aren't we displaying them like works of art? We're just putting them in these little plastic containers and maybe putting on a little $2 plastic stand. Like, why aren't we making these look amazing? And one of the things that his company has done is they've been working on a slab, and I could be mistaken because this is what I recall in my research of them, and I probably should have looked it up again more recently. But the slab looks sort of like an iPhone. Already pretty nice, right? It's a high quality glass. It's super sleek. And the grade information is on the side. It's on the edge instead of on the face. So when you look at the card face on, you don't actually see it. Now that makes it difficult when selling a card, right? If you're a dealer, right now you just lay your cards out and it has the grades, it has the ID numbers, it has all this. So now if it's on the side, it would be less convenient for a dealer. But as the end user, which isn't that what grading is supposed to be for, is the end user, I don't have to stare at the big number anymore. I get to look at it. The other thing that I feel like I remember reading, and again, I'm a bozo for not looking it up, but it's uniform. So the iPhone looking case for an SGC slab is the same for an iPhone looking case. So let me back up. What they would do is they would take an existing SGC slab and your card would go from the current SGC slab into this new sleek Mint slab and still be honored by SGC. It would maintain the grade. It would maintain the serial number. It would maintain all the same information, but it would be in this third-party slab that's high-end looking, beautiful. And then you could have another card graded by PSA. And that PSA slab, so then Mint takes it, they take it out of the PSA slab, they put it into the Mint slab, maintains the same grade, maintains the same serial number, and when you put the two side by side, the PSA and the SGC one, they're the same. They look exactly the same. You wouldn't know one was one over the other unless you looked at the information on the edge. And my understanding is that this is an initial, I can't believe I'm saying this without double checking it. I feel like I'm a total goober, but it would be a partnership with those companies where they would say, yes, it's okay that you take it out of our slab and put it into your slab and keep all the same information. So PSA would still honor it and SGC would still honor it. That, I think, could be the future. I think PSA and SGC have to find a way to be uniform. And they have to find a way to protect the card inside of the holder besides simply a piece of plastic around it. It has to be light. It has to protect it from light, from sunlight. It has to protect it from water. It has to protect it from air. It has to encapsulate it, but encapsulate it in an attractive way that doesn't force us to continue to rely on their information being on the top of the flip. That, to me, I think has a lot of potential. Now, what I'll do is down in the description below, I'll provide a link over to their information, to their website, and you can look at it. Most of their information right now is about their displays, but there is some stuff that they've released about a slab partnership with those two big grading companies as well. I'll put some links in the description if you're interested. Very, very cool if that were to all come to fruition. Guys, if you have a question for an upcoming episode, down in the comments below, just simply type your question. I appreciate all of you. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. If you have some travel going on, be safe. If you have some days off, enjoy. Spend time with your family. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.